You know that day when you feel like your life has hit rock bottom? Well, that was me 3 years ago. My name's Daniel. I'm 28 years old, and I worked at a tech company downtown. I was just another junior programmer in a sea of gray cubicles, making just enough to pay for my tiny apartment and eat ramen 4 times a week. But this story isn't about me. Or rather, it's not just about me. It's about Mr. Martinez, the man who completely changed my perspective on success, wealth, and what really matters in life. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday in March. I had just received the news that I wouldn't be getting promoted. Again. It was the third time in 2 years that I watched less qualified colleagues move up while I remained stuck. My boss, Mr. Peterson, called me into his office and dropped that classic line. "You're great technically, Daniel, but you need to work on your leadership skills." Leadership skills. Right. What he really meant was that I didn't play golf with the executives on weekends or laugh at their terrible jokes during meetings. I wasn't part of the club, and I never would be. I left his office feeling like a complete failure. 28 years old, no savings, no girlfriend, no prospects. My mom back in Ohio kept asking when I'd settle down, and I didn't have the heart to tell her I could barely afford to settle, period. That day, I did something I rarely did. I actually took a proper lunch break. Usually, I just grab a protein bar from the vending machine and eat at my desk while debugging code. But that day, I needed to get out of that building before I said something I'd regret. I grabbed my brown bag lunch from the office fridge, a sad peanut butter and jelly sandwich, an apple that had seen better days, and a bottle of water. I headed to the small plaza behind our building, where there were a few benches and a dried-up fountain that the city had given up on fixing years ago. The plaza was mostly empty, except for a few pigeons fighting over a discarded hot dog bun, and an elderly man in a janitor's uniform sitting on a bench in the corner. I recognized him vaguely. He was one of the cleaning staff in our building, always pushing his cart around after hours, emptying trash cans and mopping floors while the rest of us packed up and went home. I sat down on a bench on the opposite side, unwrapped my sandwich, and stared at it. Peanut butter and jelly. Again. It was the same lunch I'd eaten since I was 7 years old. Back then, it tasted like comfort. Now it just tasted like failure. I took a bite and immediately regretted it. The bread was stale, and I'd been too rushed that morning to check. I could feel tears of frustration welling up in my eyes. God, I was pathetic. Crying over a stale sandwich. "Rough day, son?" I looked up, startled. The janitor had moved to the bench next to mine. Up close, I could see he was older than I'd thought, maybe in his 70s. He had kind eyes, the type that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His uniform was clean but worn, and his name tag read Martinez. "Yeah, you could say that," I replied, wiping my eyes quickly. "Just one of those days, you know?" He nodded slowly, as if he understood exactly what I meant. "I know those days very well. They seem to pile up sometimes, don't they?" I laughed bitterly. "You have no idea." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I took another reluctant bite of my sandwich, while he pulled out his own lunch from a small cooler. A simple sandwich, an orange, and what looked like homemade cookies wrapped in aluminum foil. "Your lunch looks better than mine," I said, trying to make conversation. He smiled. "My wife, she makes sure I eat well. Even after 45 years of marriage, she still packs my lunch every morning like I'm a schoolboy." 45 years. Wow, that's really something. "It is," he agreed. "It's everything, actually." I watched as he unwrapped his sandwich. It looked fresh, with actual vegetables and what appeared to be roasted turkey. Meanwhile, I was stuck with my pathetic PB&J that tasted like cardboard. He noticed me staring and held out half of his sandwich. "Would you like some? Rosa always packs too much. She thinks I'm still a young man who needs to eat for 3. I shook my head quickly. No, I couldn't. That's your lunch." "I insist," he said warmly. "I can see you're not enjoying yours, and food tastes better when shared with good company." I hesitated. Every part of my pride screamed at me to refuse. Here I was, a college-educated programmer, being offered food by an elderly janitor, but my stomach growled, and honestly, the sandwich looked incredible. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Absolutely certain." I accepted the half sandwich, and when I took a bite, I almost groaned out loud. It was delicious. Real food, made with care and love. It tasted like something from a different world than the one I'd been living in. "This is amazing," I said between bites. "Please thank your wife for me." "I will," he chuckled. "She'll be pleased. Rosa loves feeding people. It's her love language, you know?" We ate together in silence for a few minutes. It was strange. Here I was, sharing lunch with a janitor whose name I'd barely learned, and it was the most human interaction I'd had in weeks, maybe months. "So," Mr. Martinez said, breaking the silence, "what's got you so down, if you don't mind me asking? Bad news at work?" I sighed. "Passed over for promotion, again. 3rd time. Starting to think I'm just not cut out for this." He nodded thoughtfully. "And what do you think you're not cut out for? The work itself, or the game around the work?" I paused. That was more insightful a question than I had expected. "The game, I guess. I'm good at what I do. I know I am. But I'm not good at all the other stuff. The politics, the networking, playing the part."
"Ah," he said, "you're good at the real work, but not at pretending the fake work is real." "Exactly," I said, surprised that he got it so perfectly. "Everyone else seems to know how to do it naturally, how to say the right things, laugh at the right jokes, pretend to care about things they don't care about." Mr. Martinez was quiet for a moment, peeling his orange with careful, practiced movements. "Can I tell you something I've learned in my 73 years on this earth?" "Please." "The game you're talking about, it's real. It exists and it matters in some spaces, but it's not the only game in town. There are many different games, many different ways to win. The trick isn't learning to play a game you hate. The trick is finding the right game for you. I considered this, but what if the only game available is the one I hate?" He smiled mysteriously. "There are always more options than we think. We just can't see them when we're stuck in one place, looking at the world from one angle." "That sounds nice in theory," I said, "but in practice, I've got bills to pay. I can't exactly quit and find myself." "Who said anything about quitting?" he asked. "I'm talking about opening your eyes, seeing opportunities that are already there." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and finished the sandwich he'd shared with me. We sat there for a while longer, watching the pigeons and the sparse lunchtime crowd passing through the plaza. "Thank you," I finally said, "for the food and the conversation. I needed both." "Any time, Daniel," he replied. I blinked. "How did you know my name?" He tapped his temple. "I pay attention. I've cleaned your office floor many times. You have your name on your desk, and you're usually there working late." "Oh, right." I felt embarrassed that I'd never noticed him before, never even learned his name until today. "Don't worry about it," he said, as if reading my mind. "People don't usually see janitors. We're like furniture that moves." "That's not fair," I protested.
"Maybe not, but it's reality. And honestly, He leaned in conspiratorially. Sometimes being invisible has its advantages. You see things. You learn things. People act differently when they think no one important is watching. I laughed. I bet you have stories. Oh, you have no idea, he said with a wink, but those are for another time. I should get back. My break's almost over. He stood up, gathering his lunch container and cooler. I stood too, feeling oddly reluctant to see him go. It was strange how much better I felt after just 30 minutes with this man. Mr. Martinez? I called as he started to walk away. Same time tomorrow? He turned back with that warm smile. I'd like that very much, Daniel. Same time, same place. And that's how it started. The next day I brought an extra sandwich and we shared lunch again. Then it became a routine. Every day at noon, rain or shine, Mr. Martinez and I would meet at that bench in the plaza. We'd share food, trade stories, and somehow those 30 minutes became the best part of my day. Over the next few weeks, I learned more about him. He'd immigrated from Mexico 50 years ago with nothing but the clothes on his back and a dream. He'd worked every job imaginable: dishwasher, construction worker, factory line supervisor, and eventually building maintenance. He spoke about each job with the same respect and dignity, like every single one had taught him something valuable. You know what I learned washing dishes? He asked me one day. Patience, and that even the dirtiest plate can become clean again with the right approach. That lesson helped me through some very dark times.
I started bringing better lunches to share. Sometimes I'd pick up sandwiches from the deli or bring fruit salad or even sushi on Fridays. Mr. Martinez always accepted graciously and would share his own food too. Rosa's cooking became legendary in my mind. Her tamales, her empanadas, the cookies she baked, everything was made with a level of care I'd never experienced in my instant meal life. But here's the thing that really got me. Mr. Martinez never complained. Not once. Here was a man in his 70s, still working as a janitor, still cleaning up after people who probably never even acknowledged his existence. And he was genuinely happy, content, at peace in a way I'd never been, despite having more education, more opportunities, supposedly more of everything. How do you do it? I asked him one day. How are you so okay with everything? He thought about it for a long moment. I used to not be. When I was your age, I was angry all the time. Angry at the world for being unfair. Angry at myself for not being more. Angry at rich people for having what I didn't. That anger was eating me alive from the inside. What changed? I realized I was playing the wrong game, he said. I was measuring my life by other people's rulers. Once I started measuring it by my own standards, by what actually mattered to me, everything shifted. Rosa loves me. My children are healthy and good people. I have a job that keeps food on the table. I sleep well at night. By my measurements, I'm the richest man in the world. I didn't know what to say to that. It sounded simple, maybe too simple, but there was a profound wisdom in it that I couldn't quite grasp yet. You think I'm naive, he said, not unkindly. No, I said honestly. I think you've figured out something I haven't. He smiled. Give it time. You're still young, still fighting battles that don't need fighting. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself changing. Those lunch conversations with Mr. Martinez became like therapy. He never gave direct advice, but he'd tell stories, ask questions, make observations that would stick with me for days.
When I complained about my coworker Steve getting credit for my work, Mr. Martinez told me about a time he'd trained someone who eventually became his supervisor. I could have been bitter, he said, or I could be proud that I taught someone well. I chose proud. Much better for my blood pressure. When I ranted about how unfair the corporate world was, he listened patiently, then said, "The world has always been unfair. That's nothing new. The question is, what are you going to do with your time here? Spend it angry at what you can't change, or find ways to make the parts you can control better?" My coworkers started noticing the change in me. I was less stressed, less bitter. I even started saying good morning to the cleaning staff when I stayed late. Most ignored me, probably wondering what I wanted, but a few smiled back. One woman, Maria, who cleaned the fourth floor, started leaving post-it notes on my desk. "Have a good night, mijo," or "Don't work too hard." It was small, but it made me feel seen in a way I hadn't before. 3 months into our daily lunches, something happened that should have been a disaster, but somehow wasn't. I got laid off. The company was downsizing, and despite my technical skills, I was still junior enough to be expendable. Mr. Peterson called me in on a Friday afternoon, gave me the speech about restructuring and difficult decisions, and just like that, I was unemployed. I was devastated. I cleaned out my desk in a daze, packed my few personal items into a cardboard box, and walked out of that building feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. It was 3 p.m. I'd missed lunch with Mr. Martinez. But when I got down to the plaza, there he was, still sitting on our bench, waiting. "I thought you might need a friend," he said simply. And that's when I broke down. Right there in that plaza, I sat on that bench and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. All the stress, all the frustration, all the fear about my future, it all came pouring out. And Mr. Martinez just sat there with his hand on my shoulder, not saying anything, just being present. When I finally pulled myself together, he handed me a napkin. "Feel better?" Honestly, yeah, a little.
Good. Now let's talk about what's next. What's next is me updating my resume and applying to 1,000 jobs, and probably ending up somewhere exactly like where I just left. Maybe, he said, or maybe this is the universe giving you a push towards something better. I laughed bitterly. Something better? I just lost my source of income. I have maybe 2 months of savings if I'm lucky. 2 months is a lot of time, he said calmly. Enough time to really think about what you want. Not what you think you should want, but what you actually want. "I want to not be homeless," I said. Reasonable. "But after that, if you could do anything, what would it be?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I didn't know. I'd been on autopilot for so long, just grinding away, that I'd never actually stopped to ask myself what I wanted from life. "I don't know," I admitted. "Then that's your first job," he said. "Figure that out. The rest will follow." We sat there until sunset, talking about possibilities, about dreams I'd had when I was younger and forgotten, about what made me feel alive. Turns out, it wasn't coding in a cubicle. It was problem-solving, yes, but more than that, it was helping people. Making things that mattered to real people, not just corporate profits. As we got up to leave, Mr. Martinez did something unexpected. He handed me a business card. It was cream-colored, expensive-looking, with embossed lettering. It read, "Roberto Martinez," with a phone number below. "If you need anything, a reference, advice, whatever, call me." I looked at the card, confused. "I thought your name was just Martinez." "Roberto Martinez," he said. "But everyone calls me Mr. Martinez or just Martinez." "Thank you," I said, pocketing the card. "For everything. These past few months, you've been more of a mentor to me than anyone at that company ever was." His eyes crinkled with that familiar smile. It's been my pleasure, Daniel. Truly. You remind me of myself at your age. So much potential, so much fire. You just need to point it in the right direction.
We parted ways, and I went home to my apartment to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. But something felt different. Instead of the panic I expected, I felt almost excited. Like maybe this wasn't the end of something, but the beginning. The next week was a blur. I filed for unemployment, started reaching out to my network, updated my LinkedIn profile. But I also did something I'd never done before. I took time to actually think about what I wanted. I still met Mr. Martinez for lunch every day at noon, even though I didn't work in that building anymore. I'd take the subway downtown just for those 30 minutes. He seemed pleased that I kept showing up. Most people disappear when their circumstances change, he observed one day. The fact that you're still here says something about your character. Where else would I be, I asked. These lunches are the best part of my day. On Thursday of my second week of unemployment, Mr. Martinez asked me a strange question. What are you doing this Saturday? Probably applying to jobs and spiraling into anxiety. Why? Rosa and I would like to invite you to dinner at our home. I was surprised. In all our months of friendship, he'd never invited me to his house. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. Rosa has been asking about you. She wants to meet the young man who's been sharing my lunches. I'd love to, I said. What can I bring? Just yourself. Rosa will cook enough food for an army, as always. He wrote down his address on a piece of paper. When I looked at it, I frowned. It was in Westchester, one of the wealthy suburbs north of the city. I knew the area vaguely. Big houses, tree-lined streets, the kind of place where hedge fund managers and corporate executives lived. Are you sure this is right? I asked. This is Westchester. Yes, that's where we live, he said simply. I assumed it must be a small apartment in the area, maybe in some less expensive pocket I didn't know about. Even janitors had to live somewhere, and maybe he'd found an affordable place there years ago, before the real estate boom. Saturday came, and I took the train north. The closer I got to the address, the more confused I became. The houses were getting bigger, more elaborate. I must have copied the address wrong, I thought. But when I checked my phone, the GPS led me to a tree-lined street with massive homes set back from the road behind iron gates. This couldn't be right. I walked up to the address Mr. Martinez had given me and stopped dead in my tracks. Behind a tall gate was a beautiful mansion. Not just a big house, but a legitimate mansion. Colonial style, probably 6,000 or 7,000 square feet, with manicured gardens, a circular driveway with a fountain in the center, and what looked like a tennis court visible on the side. I checked the address 3 times. This was it. But there had to be some mistake. Maybe Mr. Martinez lived in a guest house on the property? Maybe he was the groundskeeper here too. I pressed the intercom button at the gate, my heart pounding with confusion and embarrassment. Hello? Came a woman's warm voice. Hi, this is Daniel. I'm here to see Mr. Martinez. I think I might have the wrong address. Daniel, no, you have the right place. Come in, come in. The gate buzzed and swung open slowly. I walked up the long driveway feeling like I had entered an alternate dimension. The property was immaculate. The gardens were filled with roses and flowering bushes. I could hear birds singing and see koi swimming in a pond near the entrance. Before I could knock, the massive front door opened. A beautiful elderly woman stood there, her silver hair pulled back in a bun, wearing an elegant dress and an apron over it. Her face lit up when she saw me. You must be Daniel. I'm Rosa. Come in, don't be shy. She pulled me into a hug before I could even respond, then ushered me inside. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was tasteful and expensive, but still somehow warm and inviting. It felt like a home, not just a showpiece. "Roberto," she called out, "Daniel is here." Roberto appeared from a side room, and I did a double take. He wasn't wearing his janitor uniform. Instead, he had on casual but expensive-looking clothes. Pressed khakis, a polo shirt, loafers. He looked different, but his smile was the same. "Daniel, welcome, welcome. Come, let me show you around." I stood there, frozen, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. "Mr. Martinez, what is happening? What is this place?" He chuckled. "This is my home. Come, you look like you need to sit down. Let's go to the living room." He guided me to a spacious room with comfortable leather furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the back gardens. I sat down heavily, still in shock. "I don't understand. You're a janitor. You work in the building downtown. You clean floors. How do you live here?" Mr. Martinez settled into a chair across from me, his expression patient and kind. "I do clean floors, yes, but that's not all I do. That's actually the smallest part of what I do." I'm so confused right now. "I know, and I apologize for not being fully transparent with you, but I had my reasons. Can I explain?" I nodded, too stunned to speak. "I own the building where you used to work. I own 17 commercial buildings in the city, actually, along with various other investments. I started my real estate portfolio 40 years ago when properties were cheap and the city was struggling. I've been very fortunate." My mouth fell open. "You own the building? But you're the janitor." "I employ the janitorial staff, yes, but sometimes, once a week or so, I like to do the work myself. I clean floors, empty trash, do basic maintenance. It keeps me grounded, reminds me where I came from, and it lets me see how my buildings really run, how my employees are treated, what's really happening on the ground level." "So, you're rich? Like, really rich?"
By most standards, yes. Though Rosa and I prefer the term financially secure. We still live simply, relatively speaking. This house is nice, but you should see some of the homes our neighbors have. We don't believe in excess for excess's sake. I sat back, my mind reeling. All those lunches, all those conversations. He'd let me assume he was just a janitor, someone struggling like me, when he was actually a millionaire, maybe a multimillionaire. "Why?" I finally asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Because if I had told you on that first day, you would have treated me differently. You would have seen me as someone above you, someone to impress or be intimidated by. You wouldn't have been yourself. But you lied to me." "I never lied," he said gently. "I simply didn't correct your assumptions. Everything I told you was true. I did immigrate with nothing. I did work every job I mentioned. I do clean floors in that building. I just didn't mention the rest." Rosa appeared with a tray of drinks, fresh lemonade in crystal glasses. She handed me one with a kind smile before sitting down next to her husband. "Don't be too hard on him, Danielle. Roberto does this sometimes. He likes to really know people, see who they are when there's no pretense. And he wanted to help you." "Help me?" "I saw myself in you," Mr. Martinez said. "That first day when you sat on that bench crying over a stale sandwich, I saw a young man who was exactly where I was 50 years ago. Talented, hard-working, but stuck in a system that didn't value him. Playing a game he was never going to win because it wasn't his game to play." So this was all, what, some kind of test? No, he said firmly. It was a friendship, one I value greatly. But yes, I was also observing you, seeing what kind of person you really were, whether you had the character and values to match your potential. And? I asked, not sure if I wanted to hear the answer. He smiled. You passed with flying colors. You shared your food with an old janitor when you barely had enough for yourself. You showed up every day even after you lost your job, just to keep our friendship alive. You treated me with respect and genuine affection, believing I was someone with nothing to offer you except conversation. That told me everything I needed to know about who you are. Rosa squeezed her husband's hand. Roberto told me all about you, how you're struggling, how you're talented but lost. We've been discussing how we might help you. I don't need charity, I said, my pride flaring up. Good, Mr. Martinez said. Because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity. But first, let's eat. We can talk business later. Rosa's been cooking all day, and if we don't eat soon, she'll be offended. The dinner was incredible. Rosa had prepared traditional Mexican dishes: mole, fresh tortillas, rice, beans, 3 different salsas, and desserts that made me want to cry. We ate in a formal dining room at a table that could seat 12, but it still felt intimate and warm. During dinner, I met their children via video call. Maria, the teacher, called from Arizona. Carlos, the nurse, checked in from his night shift at the hospital, and Sofia, the restaurant owner, joined briefly between dinner rushes at her place in Brooklyn. They all knew about me. Mr. Martinez had told them about our lunches, and they greeted me like I was already part of the family. It was overwhelming in the best way possible. After dinner, Mr. Martinez invited me to his study. It was a room lined with books, with a large desk, comfortable chairs, and windows overlooking the gardens. This is where we had the conversation that changed my life. I have a proposition for you, he said, pouring us both a glass of whiskey. I want you to come work for me. Doing what? I'm a programmer. I don't know anything about real estate. You're a problem solver, he corrected. I've watched you. I've listened to how your mind works. You see systems. You identify inefficiencies. You think creatively. Those skills translate to any industry.
What exactly are you offering? I need someone to help modernize my business operations. I'm 73 years old, Daniel. I built my empire through hard work and street smarts. But the world has changed. Everything is digital now. Property management systems, tenant portals, automated maintenance requests, data analytics to predict building issues before they become expensive problems. I need someone who understands technology but also understands people. Someone who can bridge that gap. I leaned forward, interested despite myself. You want me to build systems for your properties? That and more. I want you to learn the business. Really learn it from the ground up. I'll pay you well, better than you were making before, but more importantly, I'll teach you. In a few years, if you prove yourself, I'll help you invest in your own properties, build your own portfolio. Why me? I asked. You could hire anyone. Someone with experience in real estate, property management. Experience can be learned, he said. Character cannot. I've spent 3 months getting to know your character. You're honest, loyal, hardworking, and humble. You treat people with dignity regardless of their position. Those are the qualities I value most. The rest, I can teach you. I sat there, the whiskey forgotten in my hand, processing what he was offering. It was more than just a job. It was a mentorship, a path forward, a completely different game
than the one I'd been playing. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, he advised. Think about it. Take the weekend. Come back Monday with questions, concerns, whatever you need to discuss. This is a big decision. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why do you still clean floors? If you own all this, why do you still do that work? He smiled, setting down his glass. Because it keeps me honest. The moment you forget where you came from, the moment you start thinking you're better than the people who work for you, that's when you lose your way. I clean floors to remember that every job has dignity. Every person has value. CEO or janitor, we're all just people trying to make our way in this world. Rosa knocked softly and entered with coffee and dessert. You two look very serious. Everything okay? Everything is wonderful, Mr. Martinez said. I just offered Daniel a job. Her face lit up. Oh, that's wonderful. Are you going to accept, Daniel? I need to think about it, I said honestly. Of course you do, she said warmly. It's a big change. But I'll tell you this. My husband is the best teacher you could ever have. He's patient, he's wise, and he genuinely cares about the people who work with him. You'd be in good hands. After dessert, Mr. Martinez drove me to the train station in his car. Not a flashy sports car or luxury sedan, but a practical, well-maintained Toyota. Even in this, he was different from what I expected wealthy people to be. Thank you for tonight, I said, as we pulled up to the station. For dinner, for the offer, for everything. I'm still processing all of this. Take your time, he said. But Daniel, whatever you decide, our friendship doesn't change. You're welcome at our home anytime, job or no job. You've become important to Rosa and me. I felt my throat tighten with emotion. You've both become important to me too. That weekend, I barely slept. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, everything Mr. Martinez had said. I thought about the game I'd been playing, trying to climb a corporate ladder that wasn't built for someone like me. And I thought about the new game he was offering, one where the rules were different, where character mattered more than politics. Monday morning, I called the number on the business card he'd given me weeks ago. A secretary answered. Martinez Properties, how may I help you? Hi, I need to speak with Mr. Martinez. Roberto Martinez. This is Daniel? Oh, Mr. Chen, yes. Mr. Martinez is expecting your call. Please hold. A moment later, his familiar voice came on the line. Daniel, have you made a decision? I have, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm in. I want to learn from you. I want to do this.
He laughed. Monday is fine. Come to the office at 9 a.m. The address is on the card. And Daniel, welcome to the family. That was 3 years ago. 3 years that completely transformed my life. Mr. Martinez kept his promise. He taught me everything about the real estate business. Not just the technical stuff, but the philosophy behind it. How to treat tenants with respect. How to maintain properties so people felt proud to live or work there. How to invest wisely, not just for profit, but to build something lasting. I learned that he gave breaks on rent to families going through hard times. That he hired people who were trying to get back on their feet after setbacks. That he paid his maintenance staff above market rate because a worker who's paid well works with pride. He introduced me to his network, other business owners who'd built success through integrity rather than ruthlessness. He taught me about compound interest, about building wealth slowly and steadily rather than chasing quick wins. But more than the business lessons, he taught me about life, about measuring success by your own standards, about the importance of family, community, and staying grounded no matter how much money you make. After 2 years, he helped me buy my first property, a small apartment building in a neighborhood that was just starting to improve. It was terrifying and exhilarating. He co-signed the loan, and I promised myself I'd make him proud. I threw myself into that building. I renovated apartments myself on weekends, learned plumbing and electrical work from YouTube and from the contractors Mr. Martinez connected me with. I got to know every tenant by name, helped them when they struggled, built a community. Within a year, the building was profitable. Not because I raised rents and pushed people out, but because I created a place where people wanted to live and took care of their homes. Last month, I bought my second property. This time without Mr. Martinez's financial help. I did it on my own, with the knowledge and resources he'd given me. But the most important thing that happened in these 3 years? I found myself. I figured out what game I wanted to play, and I'm playing it on my own terms. I still have lunch with Mr. Martinez twice a week. Sometimes at fancy restaurants, sometimes on that same bench in the plaza where we first met. We still share food, still talk about life, still laugh together. Rosa has basically adopted me. I have dinner at their house every other Sunday. She introduced me to her niece, Elena, who's a graphic designer. We've been dating for 8 months now, and honestly, I think she might be the one. My mom came to visit last month and met the Martinez family. She pulled me aside and said, "Daniel, I don't know what happened to you, but you're different. You're happy, you're confident, you're living." And she was right. I am living. Maybe for the first time in my life. Last week, something happened that brought everything full circle. I was at one of my properties, helping fix a leaky pipe in a tenant's apartment. I was in work clothes, covered in grime, completely focused on the problem. A young guy, maybe 25, saw me in the hallway. He looked stressed, defeated, the kind of look I used to see in the mirror every morning. "You work maintenance here?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. "Lucky you," he said bitterly. "At least you have a steady job. I just got laid off from my startup. Tech industry is brutal." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw myself 3 years ago. "Yeah, that's rough. You have lunch plans?" He blinked, surprised. No."
There's a good deli around the corner. My treat. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's been there. We went to lunch. I bought him a sandwich and let him vent about his situation. I didn't tell him I owned the building he lived in. I didn't tell him about my success or my mentor or any of it. I just listened, shared my own story of hitting rock bottom, and offered some perspective. "The game you were playing," I told him, "maybe it wasn't the right game for you. Maybe this is your chance to find a better one." His name was Marcus. We exchanged numbers, and I told him to call me if he needed advice or just someone to talk to. When I told Mr. Martinez about it later, he got that twinkle in his eye. "Paying it forward already? I'm proud of you." "I learned from the best," I said. "No," he corrected gently. "You learned because you were ready to learn. I just happened to be there at the right time. That's all any of us can do, Daniel. Be ready when opportunity comes, and be the opportunity when someone else needs it." Last month, Mr. Martinez announced he was stepping back from the day-to-day operations of his company. He promoted his longtime COO to CEO and moved himself to chairman. At the same time, he made me a junior partner in one of his holding companies. "You've earned it," he said when I tried to protest. "Not through politics or games, but through genuine hard work and character. This is just the beginning for you." At the announcement dinner, surrounded by Rosa, their children, Elena, and the key people in Mr. Martinez's organization, I gave a toast. 3 years ago, I was at rock bottom. I felt like a failure, like I'd never amount to anything. Then I met a janitor who shared his lunch with me. That simple act of kindness changed my life, not because he gave me food, but because he gave me something more valuable: perspective, wisdom, and belief in myself.
I looked at Mr. Martinez, whose eyes were moist with emotion. "You taught me that success isn't about climbing someone else's ladder. It's about building your own. You taught me that wealth isn't just money in the bank. It's relationships, integrity, and peace of mind. You taught me that the measure of a person isn't their job title or their bank account. It's how they treat others when there's nothing to gain from it." Rosa was crying openly now, and even Mr. Martinez had to wipe his eyes. "You saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You took a chance on a bitter, lost programmer and showed him a different path. I can never repay you for that, but I can promise to honor what you've taught me, to pay it forward, to treat people with dignity, to stay humble no matter how much success comes my way." I raised my glass. "To Mr. Martinez, the janitor who owns mansions but still mops floors, the millionaire who drives a Toyota, the mentor who became family. Thank you for sharing your lunch with me. Thank you for changing my life." Everyone raised their glasses and the room erupted in applause. Later that night, as the party wound down, Mr. Martinez and I stood on his back patio looking out over the gardens. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "If you'd told me on that first day who you really were, if you'd offered me a job as a rich businessman helping out a struggling kid, I probably would have taken it, but I would have seen it as charity, as a handout. I would have felt less than, grateful but resentful at the same time." "I know," he said quietly. "But because you let me see you as an equal first, because our friendship was built on genuine connection rather than a power dynamic, everything was different. I never felt like a charity case. I felt like someone you believed in. Because I did believe in you. I do believe in you." "Why?" I asked. "Really, why me? You must meet hundreds of people in your position. Why invest so much in one random programmer?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you a story?" "Always."
When I was 25, I was working construction. I had nothing, was barely making rent in a terrible apartment with 5 roommates. One day, I was eating lunch on a job site, and an old man sat down next to me. He was the site inspector, and we got to talking. He shared his lunch with me, just like I shared mine with you. My eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously. His name was Samuel Cohen. Over the next several months, we became friends. He taught me about real estate, about investing, about thinking long-term. When I had saved enough for my first property, he co-signed my loan. He believed in me when no one else did. What happened to him? He passed away 20 years ago. But before he died, he told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "Roberto, I'm not investing in you expecting anything back. I'm investing in you so that someday, when you're in a position to help someone else, you'll remember this feeling and pay it forward." I felt chills run down my spine. So I'm not the first. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. I've mentored 7 people over the years. Some have gone on to great success. A couple failed and disappeared. One turned out to be dishonest, and we parted ways. But each one taught me something, and I like to think I helped them, even the ones who didn't make it in business. "And Marcus?" I asked. "The guy I had lunch with?" He smiled. "That's up to you. Maybe he's someone worth investing in. Maybe not. Trust your instincts. You'll know." We stood there in comfortable silence, 2 men from completely different backgrounds, brought together by a shared sandwich and a willingness to see each other as human beings first. "Thank you," I said finally, "for everything, for the job, the mentorship, the friendship, for treating me like family." "Thank you," he replied, "for reminding me why I do this, for being proof that kindness matters, that character counts, that the old ways of doing business with integrity and humanity still work." He put his hand on my shoulder. "Your journey is just beginning, Daniel. You're going to do great things, not because you're chasing success, but because you understand what success really means. And that makes all the difference." So that's my story.
The story of how sharing lunch with a janitor led me to a mansion, but more importantly, led me to myself. It taught me that success isn't about the game you play, it's about playing the right game. It's not about beating others, it's about being better than you were yesterday. Mr. Martinez is 76 now, still healthy, still cleaning floors once a week because it keeps him grounded. Rosa still packs his lunch every morning, and twice a week, we still meet for lunch, whether in the plaza, at a restaurant, or in their beautiful home. I'm building my own empire now, slowly and steadily. I'm doing it the right way, treating people with dignity, investing in communities, helping others climb up with me. And someday, when I'm older, I hope to be sitting on a bench somewhere, sharing my lunch with some stressed-out young person who thinks their life is over. Because that's the real wealth Mr. Martinez gave me. Not money or property or business knowledge, though those things are valuable. He gave me a legacy of kindness. A philosophy of success that's about more than just accumulation. He showed me that the richest person isn't the one with the most money, but the one with the most meaningful connections, the clearest conscience, and the deepest sense of purpose. And it all started with a sandwich. If you're watching this and you feel stuck, if you feel like you're playing a game you can't win, I want you to remember something. Maybe it's not your game to play. Maybe there's a different path, one that aligns with who you really are and what you really value. Be open to unexpected friendships. Be kind to people regardless of their position. Share what you have, even when you don't have much to share.
You never know when a simple act of kindness might change someone's life, or when someone's kindness might change yours. That janitor you ignore in the hallway, that tired server at your favorite restaurant, that elderly person sitting alone on a bench, they might just be the person who changes your entire trajectory. Or you might be the person who changes theirs. Success isn't about the size of your house or your bank account. It's about the size of your impact, the depth of your relationships, and the integrity of your choices. Mr. Martinez taught me that, and now I'm teaching it to others. This is Daniel Chen, signing off. Remember, be kind, stay humble, and never underestimate the power of sharing your lunch.